On the 20th of August, 2021, a notification went out to 23 million phones. Logan Paul, then 26 years old, had just launched something he called CryptoZoo.
CryptoZoo.co.
It was a game, or it was supposed to be. Players would buy a token called Zoo. They would use that token to buy digital eggs. Those eggs would hatch into digital animals. The animals could be bred together, creating new hybrid animals, which players could then trade or sell. Logan Paul described it on his podcast as, quote, "a really fun game that makes you money."
Really fun game that makes you money.
Within 72 hours of the launch, investors had moved more than $2.5 million into the project. Within a month, the figure was over 25 million. By the time the dust settled, court filings would describe a project that had moved north of $30 million in tokens and NFTs. Some estimates ran higher. There was just one problem. The game did not work. Not for one player. Not for one day. Not once. You could buy the eggs. You could not hatch them. You could buy the tokens. You could not use them. You could see your animals on the blockchain. You could not breed them. You could not sell them in any functional market. You could not get your money out. We dug through court documents, blockchain transaction records, and 3 years of investigative reporting by an independent journalist who built his entire career on this story. This is the story of CryptoZoo, the text that warned Logan Paul before he launched, the 2 anonymous wallets that walked away with $1.3 million, the class action lawsuit that ran for 2 years and was eventually dismissed. The defamation lawsuit Logan Paul is still fighting. And the question that nobody, including a Texas judge, has been able to fully answer: did Logan Paul launch a game that failed, or did he launch a project that was never going to work in the first place? You decide. To understand what happened with CryptoZoo, you have to understand what it was supposed to be. In the summer of 2021, the NFT market was at its peak. The Bored Ape Yacht Club was selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars per image. Celebrities were endorsing crypto projects on social media, and a category of game called Play to Earn was capturing the imagination of millions of investors. The most famous example was a game called Axie Infinity, which at one point was generating more than $1 billion in player revenue. Logan Paul wanted in. His project, CryptoZoo, was structured around 3 layers. The first layer was a token. It was called Zoo. Investors would buy Zoo tokens with regular cryptocurrency, usually Ethereum. The Zoo token was traded on decentralized exchanges. Its price would rise and fall depending on how many people were buying or selling. The second layer was the eggs. Investors would spend their Zoo tokens to buy digital eggs as NFTs. Each egg cost the equivalent of around $100 in Zoo. The eggs were sold in batches. Each batch sold out in minutes. The third layer was the breeding mechanism. Once you owned an egg, you could hatch it into an animal. Once you owned 2 animals, you could breed them. Breeding 2 animals produced a hybrid, which was rarer and theoretically more valuable. Players would earn a daily yield of Zoo tokens for each animal they owned, with rarer animals producing more. On paper, it looked like Pokemon meets Pokemon Go meets a stock market. In practice, only the first 2 layers ever worked. You could buy the tokens. You could buy the eggs. The third layer, the entire engine of the game, the thing that gave the eggs and tokens any actual value, was never delivered. Players who bought eggs in August 2021 were still waiting 12 months later, then 24 months later, then 36. The eggs sat in their wallets, unhatched, untradeable, surrounded by promises about a beta launch that kept getting pushed back. In the meantime, the price of Zoo collapsed. A token that had peaked at around 14 cents in September 2021 was trading at less than 1/10 of 1 cent 18 months later. Investors who had bought in at the top were down 99%. In December 2022, an independent investigator named Stephen Findeisen, who runs a YouTube channel called Coffeezilla, published a 3-part series on CryptoZoo. Findeisen had been following the project for over a year. He had interviewed investors, he had read the smart contracts, he had traced the wallets on the blockchain, and he had reached out to Logan Paul directly months before the original launch with a private message. That message read, quote, "Real talk, you shouldn't run a coin. It's lame and you're gonna scam or get scammed." Logan Paul launched anyway. What Findeisen found, and what he laid out across roughly 3 hours of investigative video, was a pattern of decisions that he argued went beyond a project that simply failed. The first finding was about the developers. CryptoZoo's smart contracts had been written by a developer named Zach Kelling. Kelling had a previous fraud conviction. Logan Paul has stated publicly that he was unaware of this at the time of hire, although text messages later surfaced suggesting key team members were aware. Kelling left the project in late 2021. According to court filings, he allegedly fled to Switzerland with the game's source code and demanded a $1 million payment to release it back.
Code that he made, fled to Switzerland, actually fled to Switzerland and held it hostage for $1 million.
The second finding was about 2 specific wallets. In Findeisen's analysis of CryptoZoo's blockchain transactions, 2 anonymous wallets received what appeared to be insider distributions. One wallet received approximately $364,000 worth of Ethereum. The other received approximately $1 million. Findeisen's reporting traced both wallets to people connected to the project's leadership, although the exact identities were and remain disputed. The third finding was about the marketing. Logan Paul had promoted CryptoZoo on his Impulsive podcast, which at the time had millions of listeners. He had pinned tweets about Zoo tokens. He had filmed himself opening eggs on camera. Many of the people who bought into the project told Findeisen that they did so specifically because Logan Paul, a creator they had followed for years, had personally vouched for it. When the project failed, those investors were not casual gamblers. They were teenagers in many cases. They were people who had never owned a cryptocurrency before. They had bought in because of one thing. The face of CryptoZoo was a face they trusted. In one of the most circulated clips from the Findeisen investigation, an investor named Josh, an Australian, was asked what he had lost. He said 50,000 Australian dollars.
$500,000 Australian.
Another investor, identified only by the name GBK, said he had lost 50,000 US dollars.
$50,000 in CryptoZoo.
A third, named Emilio, said he had been short 40,000. When Findeisen asked them what they had to show for it, one investor showed his screen. There was an egg sitting in his crypto wallet. It had been sitting there for over a year. Quote, "I'm telling you," he said, "it's just a picture. Nothing I can do with it."
I'm telling you, it's just a picture. There's nothing I can do with it.
The Coffeezilla series did something that crypto investigators had been struggling to do for years. It went viral. The first video alone passed 10 million views within a few months of release. The series in total has been watched over 20 million times. It became the most watched investigative series on YouTube about a single crypto project, and it permanently changed how the platform's audience saw influencer-backed cryptocurrency. Logan Paul's first response was a video he later deleted in which he denied wrongdoing and accused another CryptoZoo developer of being responsible. The deleted video included specific claims about how the game would still launch and how players could still hatch their eggs. None of those claims came true. In January 2023, Logan Paul released a more measured statement. He said he was, quote, taking accountability. He said he had personally lost money on the project. He said he would refund investors out of his own pocket. He pledged $1.8 million. A class action lawsuit had already been filed against him in federal court in the Western District of Texas. That lawsuit alleged that Paul and other CryptoZoo associates had, quote, promoted the project to consumers unfamiliar with digital currency products and manipulated the digital currency market for Zoo tokens to their advantage. Paul fought back on two fronts. In January 2024, he opened a refund website. He pledged a higher figure of $2.3 million to buy back eligible NFTs at a rate of 0.1 Ethereum per egg. The refund came with one condition. To receive it, claimants had to waive any future right to sue him over CryptoZoo. At the same time, Paul filed a cross-claim against two named developers, Jake Greenbaum and Eduardo Ibanez, alleging that they were the actual, quote, con artists who had pocketed millions while he had personally lost hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to save the project. The class action moved through the courts for nearly 2 years. In October 2025, a U.S. magistrate judge dismissed the class action against Logan Paul. The judge ruled that there was insufficient evidence to support the claim that Paul's statements about CryptoZoo had been misleading or fraudulent. According to Paul's attorney Jeff Neiman, who spoke to the news outlet TMZ, the judge declared a, quote, total dismissal. Logan Paul was, in legal terms, cleared, but the legal story was not over. In a parallel case, Logan Paul had sued Stephen Findeisen, the Coffeezilla investigator, for defamation. Paul's complaint alleged that Findeisen had, quote, maliciously and repeatedly published false statements accusing Paul of operating a scam. Findeisen filed a motion to dismiss in February 2025. In March 2025, a Texas magistrate judge denied that motion. The judge wrote that Findeisen's use of the word scam met the definition of a defamatory statement and that Findeisen's role as a crypto investigator would lead, quote, an objectively reasonable reader to understand his statements as an assertion of fact. That defamation suit, as of this recording, is still active. So how do we make sense of all this? Here is what we can say with confidence. CryptoZoo was launched in August 2021. It raised tens of millions of dollars. It never delivered a working game. Investors lost money, real money. Some of them lost their savings. Many of them were young, and many of them had bought in because Logan Paul personally vouched for the project. Here is what the courts have said. In a class action filed by investors, the judge ruled there was not enough evidence to find Logan Paul personally liable. He was not found guilty of fraud. He was not found guilty of misleading anyone in any way that met the legal standard. The case was dismissed. Here is what Logan Paul says. He says he was personally deceived by his developers. He says he lost his own money on the project. He says he refunded investors at his own expense. He says the failure of CryptoZoo was the failure of two specific people who he is now suing. Here is what the investigation by Coffeezilla suggested. That money flowed in patterns that Coffeezilla characterized as suspicious. That two wallets he linked to insiders received over $1.3 million in payouts. That Logan Paul had been warned in writing by Coffeezilla himself before the project launched. Here is what neither side disputes. The game was promised. The game did not work. People paid for something they did not receive. The remaining question, the one a Texas judge will eventually have to decide, is whether what happened at CryptoZoo amounted to a legal wrong. The class action says no. The defamation suit will say something else. And, in the meantime, the two anonymous wallets that took home over $1 million from a project that produced nothing have never been publicly identified. Eduardo Ibanez and Jake Greenbaum, the developers Logan Paul sued, have denied the allegations against them. The case against them remains open. Logan Paul, for his part, has moved on. He is now a wrestler with the WWE. He launched a sports drink called Prime that, at its peak, did over $1 billion in sales. He hosts one of the largest podcasts in the United States. He got married in 2025. Stephen Findeisen, the man who spent 3 years investigating him, is being sued in federal court for the work that put him on the map. If you have ever wondered why crypto fraud is so hard to prosecute, this is your answer. the line between a project that failed and a project that defrauded its investors is not the line a normal person would draw. It is the line a court draws. And that line, as the CryptoZoo case demonstrates, is not always where the public expects it to be. What that means for the next Logan Paul, the next CryptoZoo, the next 23 million followers receiving a notification about a new token is that the platform of accountability may be smaller than you think. The Securities and Exchange Commission has not regulated NFTs. The class action route in this case did not produce a verdict. The investigative journalists who do the work face defamation suits for their trouble. We will be following the Coffeezilla defamation suit closely. The verdict, when it comes, will say more about how the United States treats crypto investigation than about Logan Paul personally. But there is one fact we want to leave you with. When Stephen Findeisen sent that private message to Logan Paul before CryptoZoo had launched, before any investor had lost a single dollar, he wrote, "You're gonna scam or get scammed." Logan Paul has spent 4 years arguing he was scammed. 20,000 investors have spent 4 years saying the opposite. A Texas court has now told us that legally, the first version is the closer to the truth. What you believe is up to you. This is Scale Theory.